All right, hello everyone. We are back. James, aka the captain, and Tennille. She officially, I think she officially let me get away with that because she posted something with aka captain. I am also known as the Ascension Coach, and I help people connect with higher states of consciousness, align with their higher selves, and discover their soul's purpose, empowering them to live a life of joy, love, abundance, and fulfillment. And I'm going to turn it over to this pretty lady and let her introduce herself.
Okay, so hi, I'm Tennille, co-founder of Moon Maiden Meditation. I'm a trauma-informed holistic wellness coach. And so our purpose is to help people get back in touch with who they
Okay. Well, that's good. That was actually good. You know what? When I'm on here with you, I just feel like I'm just chatting with Tennille. So I'm just going to talk like I'm talking. The last time you introduced yourself, it was like, wow, that's a lot. But I was like, I need to talk to her about how to shorten that. But okay, we're there. We're absolutely there. So today we are today we are talking about if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. And I was telling Tennille that mindfulness had been on my mind for probably about a couple of weeks. So I said, let's talk about this. And then I had read something. Tennille shared some a little bit about what she does with me. She wanted me to kind of look at something. I won't mention it because I don't think I'm supposed to mention it. But I saw mindfulness in that as well. So I said, you know what, that's an area that we both kind of cover. So that would be a great topic to talk about. So Tennille, I'll let you go first and talk about kind of what mindfulness means to you and how you operate in it with your clients.
Well, mindfulness is primarily about being present, right? And to be very honest, I've noticed that, while myself included, it's quite difficult to actually be present. So while I understood the scientific benefits of meditation, for example, I had a lot of difficulty with meditation because I had a misconception of what it was. And understanding that mindfulness is really just about getting yourself back into yourself, right? As opposed to kind of like forcing yourself to stay still. It's just acknowledging and accepting the experiences that you're having in that moment, and how it almost automatically results in your mind clearing, for example. So instead of struggling or fighting your thoughts or fighting with yourself in your mind, you can actually just accept yourself. And it brings a lot of calm. It brings a lot of peace. So yeah, so ultimately that's where mindfulness, came in for me. It's really just the art of being truly present in the moment, and then the rest just kind of like opens up for you.
I love that. And when you're okay, when a client comes to you
Mm-hmm.
and obviously they're scattered probably all over the place trying to figure out how to navigate whatever issue that they have, what kind of what do you tell them to do as it relates to mindfulness? Is it meditation? Is it journaling? Do you allow them to choose it? Like, where do you go with that with your clients?
Well, I've actually had within my intuitive guidance, for example, I've had clients come that are like, I can't meditate. My mind is too busy. And I kind of laugh because I can absolutely relate. I have an extremely busy mind. So again, when trying to apply it in the way that people often assume it's supposed to be done, it can actually be almost uncomfortable because you feel like you're fighting yourself, right? So
Yeah.
instead, I bring them to essential body awareness, right? So breath awareness, body awareness, those are just like baselines that can get you into the present moment. So with different breathing techniques, breathwork techniques, that can actually ground you, and they're very beneficial also for like regulating your emotions, right? So kind of
Mhm.
your physiological responses, bringing you back to a place of calm. And then body scans. Body scans are great for body awareness because, as we're now understanding, when it comes to things like trauma, these things can actually be trapped in your body. So sometimes you're not actually aware that you're physically carrying your stress in your body. So when you do things like body scan and you actually pay attention to the sensations and the feelings throughout your body, you're bringing you right there into the presence with yourself, right? And recognizing like where there may be tension. So body scans, breath awareness, those are like baselines for mindfulness. And then for further awareness, self-awareness, that's when things like journaling and the like that comes in, but that's more now for exploring yourself. But I think the very first step is to really get in touch with yourself, with the actual body that you're in.
Yeah, yeah, that makes total sense. And actually, I was not present just now. I was trying to. Because I don't know. I don't know if I shared this with Tennille, but because I'm streaming also to Facebook, Facebook's default is to not show it or to show it to only me. So I had to go to Facebook and make it public. I know you stream it to your page, which works. I stream it to my personal page where I got to now go and I got to switch it up so I could hear you.
But you weren't listening.
So mindfulness on how I deal with it or how I look at it, because I no longer meditate. I remember it was around December. I journal everything. So it was probably around December 3rd. My higher self said that I no longer needed to, and my higher self is just really my true self, said I no longer needed to meditate. I no longer needed to do affirmations, those kind of things, because, and I when I think back on it now, when I look at it in retrospect, it's almost as if I live my life in a meditative state, to be honest with you. But I'm other than when Tennille's talking and I'm trying to switch, get something together on Facebook, I'm actually 80-90% of the time 1000% present. And so that's another way. Like, I think they talk about walking meditations or meditations where your eyes are open. That's kind of how I live my life. I live my life in that space. And it's so vitally important. Mindfulness, when we're looking at it from that perspective, whether it's from meditation or just being present, period, it's so vitally important because that is what some people refer to as the void state or the 0 point field. Like, that's where your true connection to the divine comes in. That's where the ideas flow into. That's where the solutions and the answers to those pressing issues pointed to. While we're in mind trying to figure it out, and just FYI, for those who are going to be watching this live or watching this on replay, one of the things I understand about the ego, and the ego isn't a bad thing necessarily, but the ego is always trying to figure something out. The ego is always trying to make sense because the ego is a very insecure aspect of this illusory dream that this mind-body experience. So I'm often mindful at times, Tennille, when there'll be moments where I'm like, you know what, I need to figure this. I need to, like, no, I don't. I need to get into that 0 point field, that void space, that emptiness, that nothingness, and allow the answer to come to me. Now, that's really, for some people, based on where you're at. You may not be there. You may be at the point where you're asking questions, and that's not a bad place. That's not a wrong place. There's nothing either right or wrong. And oftentimes your soul, your higher consciousness will answer you from that space. But from the space of mindfulness, of just emptying in the mind and getting into the heart, or just emptying in the mind, period, the answer will flow. The answer will come, I promise you.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the, I think I told you in the last thing about how I came to the full understanding of mindfulness and how it was, up among the trees, right? I wasn't sitting still with my eyes closed at that point. I was very active, but because I was present, I actually had that. So active meditation was actually one of the things I'll be incorporating in my practice, right? Active mindfulness, where you don't have to. Not everybody wants to be sitting, and it's quite, as I say, quite uncomfortable, right? Because you're not learning that it's really just about the presence. You seem to think that you have to do this thing, you have to clear your mind, and essentially it actually puts you in the spin cycle where you're working too hard, to do this thing that could just come if you could just be present, right? So one of the things, when I was doing my meditation training, I came across, which I found very helpful, and it actually helped me myself in a moment of stress. It's called the Holy Temple Technique. And what it is, it's a series of mantras. So what will happen is, often when you start getting like overwhelmed. If you pay attention to your thoughts, you'll see the kind of things that are going on. And sometimes you're trying to solve problems. You're thinking about work. Sometimes, you know, you're thinking about, and you're having an argument in your head, you know, with somebody that, you know, is not even there. There's all these things going on in your head that aren't actually happening in the moment. But you're creating these experiences, and as a result, you're creating these responses to things that aren't actually happening. So this mantra is, it's basically, so for example, I'll use myself. I like telling people what to do, so I'll teach people in my head all the time. So one of the mantras, when you realize you're getting caught up with teaching when you're not even actually in front of the people you're thinking of teaching, is no teaching inside. Teaching is to be done outside. So it's that simple reminder, things that you're trying to process in your mind, like they're not part of your current present reality. So you know, if you can teach outside, by all means, go do your teaching outside, but stop teaching in your head. Same thing with confrontations. No confrontation inside. Confrontation is to be done outside. So that's one of the ways to remind yourself to get out of your head. You know, it's this is not going to be solved in here. You know, no problem solving inside. Problems are to be solved outside, and that can help you get out of those.
I love that. I don't think I've heard of that, but I absolutely love that. And just circling back to where you began that conversation, you know, of the people that have difficulty and challenges meditating. One of the things that we don't often think about, but it's very real for people. Even if you can meditate for 15, 20, 30 minutes in the morning or whatever, there's still that propensity to, after that, get into your mind after that. And so being able to, and it was because you talked about incorporating it into your practice, the kind of just with your eyes open. And so if you are a living meditation, in the sense that you are as much as possible present throughout the day, that kind of helps and works with you in the sense of, okay, you don't have that 30 minutes where you're meditating and now you got 23 and a half hours where you're just in your mind or whatever. So once you make it a lifestyle, then again, just life begins to open up for you in a way that, you know, will absolutely amaze you. You know, I mentioned to Tennille, I think it was one of the messages I sent to you, that where we came from, you know, just the dark place that we came out of. I mean, like, we're both so full of energy. Like, we're both so very energetic. We love this. And so to think that we were once different than this, or had a moment where it's still kind of mind blowing in a sense, but being present, being in that meditative state, being in a mindful, I don't even like the word mindful, but being in a mindful state. And I say I don't like the word mindful because I was telling Tennille before we got on, it's more about emptying in your mind than it is about having a full mind. But getting into that space helps you connect with your authentic self. And really, for me, I talk about soul. And soul doesn't have an opinion. Soul, there's no right or wrong in soul. Soul is not trying to figure something out. Soul knows all, right? And so getting into that space where you're in a neutral space, where your mind isn't just racing, where you're not trying to figure something out. And you touched on this. You did a great segue. And I'm gonna say this and then turn it back over to you. But you talked about creating. And I was like, oh, that's a great segue for, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Because I was telling Tennille when we talked about where I wanted to go with this, is we're always creating, we're always manifesting. Even this moment, like, I manifested Tennille manifested me. This environment that I'm in was a manifestation. The environment Tennille's in was a manifestation. What you are experiencing as you're watching this live or watching the replay is a manifestation. And that comes from the mind. Like the soul consciousness is a projector, and it projects whatever the mind is full of. So when we talk about, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Really, I was telling Tennille, it was kind of a play on words, because whatever your mind is full of is what's going to project. And she said this as well, basically, is going to project into your 3D reality. So if I'm thinking lack, if I'm thinking illness or sickness, if I'm thinking I'm not perfect, or if I'm thinking low self-worth, low self-esteem, that is going to be what matters or what takes form in your 3D reality. And so if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. And if you are going to mind, at least mind that which you want to experience, so it could be that that matters, or that which takes form. Did that make sense to know when I said that?
No, absolutely, 100%. And I understand where you were coming from in terms of like not liking to use the word mindfulness, right?
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
anything, I think one way that we can reframe this is really referring to it as presence, right? It's
yeah,
really presence.
yeah,
It's being present in that particular moment and finding ways to ground you. And I really like what you said about the fact that this is not something that you just do for 15 minutes at the beginning of the day or 15 minutes at the end of the day. It is something that you can do throughout the day. And one of the
yeah,
beautiful things about getting in touch with yourself is that you can start to realize where maybe you're not in the moment, because you start to feel antsy. You find yourself worried about stuff. You find yourself, snappy, angry. And then one of the quick ways to shift is to simply ground yourself. So one of the other simple grounding techniques that I use is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. So when you find yourself in that state, if you're really upset, you're getting, like heightened emotional state, whatever that may be, you can simply ground yourself. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch. 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Right. And it just means paying attention to your current environment and making note of that. And just because you're paying attention to your current environment, and trust me, this works with kids too. So some of these things are, as I said, I take a very child-centric approach, right? My daughter's in the middle of the tantrum. I'm like, give me 5 things you can see, And trust me, within a short time, it starts to, and this works with children, it works with us. But we're so used to being caught up in our emotional states, right? And not realizing or even thinking that they're out of our control and we can't get ourselves back to being in the calm state. When you are in a calm state, you are in the best state for solutions to come, which you touched on as well, right?
yeah,
Where you don't actively seek solutions, they will come to you when you
yeah,
just let it go. But this letting it go also seems scary until you realize, no, it's not. Just simply ground yourself in the present. Ground yourself in the present. And then let it come to you, right?
let
That's
it
being
go.
in touch with yourself. Many
Yeah,
of us are so disconnected with ourselves, though, that all of this is just, because we have the whole positive thinking thing, like, oh, just think positively. If you catch yourself thinking negatively, think positively. Well, yeah, positive thinking, neuroplasticity, it is a good thing. But what people don't consider is that it's not always easy to just shift to positive thinking, especially if you're in a heightened emotional state that's negative. So what you should first be doing is getting back to the present. Because as you get back to the present, then the positive thinking will come on its own, right? It's not something you have to actively shift into.
yeah, yeah. And being present for me translates to just being in soul, being conscious, and being conscious of this. And again, the way I talk about it as this 3D reality. The mind is a part of that, this illusory dream. The body is a part of this illusory dream. When you are present, for me, you are in soul. You are in consciousness, and so you are conscious of your emotions. You are able to observe them. You are able to observe the thoughts that come across the screen of your mind. And what I tell people all the time is just a little bit of separation between, and that's being present, but that little bit of separation between who I truly am as consciousness, as soul, as a divine being, and what is happening in this seeming reality now detaches. Like, detach is such a key component of what I teach and the ascension journey and accelerating and growth. It's, can you detach? Can you be present? Which is the same thing. Can you detach, be present from what you are experiencing, where you are now just the witnesser? You are no longer a participant, or even you are watching yourself participate in it, but you recognize that I am the God self consciousness, divine being, soul, who is observing this taking place. For me, that is even how you regulate emotions. That's how you regulate the intrusive, fear-based, addictive thoughts that show up in your reality. I remember reading Eckhart talked about, even in the challenging moments, you can be the awareness that is aware that you're having a challenging moment.
Yeah.
But even just, again, that having that sense of awareness, that sense of presence, where I'm just watching it all as if I'm watching a show, I'm watching a movie. I may be in it, but I have stepped back from it and I'm just watching it as if I'm on my couch watching a movie take place. Because not only do you allow the next step to come in, but now you're also consciously creating the moment. So if you're in a moment that you don't desire, if in a moment that you don't prefer, if you can step back, if you can detach from what is happening, you can now step into soul, where your creative power is, where your creative power takes place. And now the next moment gets to look different because you consciously chose it to be a different moment.
I mean, but this is why I think it is very important for people to understand that this is a practice, right? It's not something that you just tap into only when things are bad. If you do this on a daily basis, then it's more easily accessible when things are bad, as opposed to only waiting for those moments, right? Which I think is what it is a lot of people don't really, we live on autopilot, and it's nothing personal. It's the way it is. We live on autopilot. And you know, I actually joke because I was talking about how something like doing laundry, right, can be a mindful activity. Like eating can be a mindful activity, right? If you take the time to, slow down, pay attention to the aromas, the textures, the tastes of the food, that's a mindful activity. Folding laundry can be a moment to bring you right here. Washing the dishes can be it's like these small little things in our day. If we just bring ourselves to exactly what it is we're doing in that moment, it can be so relaxing without even realizing it. But the thing is that most of us are here doing this, but our minds are there doing that, right? We're not in the present. Where I'll just, again, using dishes as an example, you're washing the dishes, but you're thinking about what you got to do next, right? Or you're even sometimes having a conversation, but you're really thinking about, this conversation needs to end so I can do this next thing that I have to do.
Right. That part. It's funny. So I'm giving a good testimony here of that. So yesterday, I've talked to my oldest daughter recently. We both been in the gym, like doing stuff that we wouldn't do. So I've been in the gym for maybe last couple of weeks or so, and it's like I'm 25 years old again. I'm just running around doing stuff like, oh, I can do this now? Like, whoa, okay. So yesterday, for some reason, it caught up with me, I guess, because I left the gym, got into my workspace, and Tennille, my hip was like, hey, what's up with you? And I'm like, what are you? I'm like, what's up with you? What's going on over there? And it's like, I think I'm just gonna rest right now. So when you try to move, we're not really gonna move. I'm like, but I need you to move. So literally, I had this appearance of pain in my hip, and Tennille, I could literally to cross a street. Like I didn't have to cross. I think I might have crossed the street at some point and get out of the car or something. But to cross the street, where it may take seconds, like it literally took minutes. It was a stretch to go from where I was sitting to the restroom, which was just a few steps away. Like it was, even laying down last night, pain. I had to lay down a certain kind of way. Now, the one thing I do, because I'm a healer and I'm operating in that space, or I'm able to connect with the God self that operates in that space, I'm like, okay, James, this is just your body. This is not you. You are whole. You are wholeness. And this is in line with that being present again. And at times I would feel some relief, but times not. However, I still woke up with it this morning. So, solution: go to the gym, go back to the gym, go sit in the sauna. So I did that, which made no sense for me because why would I go back to the gym? That was my plan to not, to rest it. So while I'm in the sauna, like it came to me, James, just No, it came, what exactly came to me? That this is just an appearance, that this is not the truth. Oh, it came to me to jump up. Like it came to me, James, jump up as if you did not have this pain. So I'm in the sauna and I'm like, okay, here we go. And it was like the pain quickly subsided, quickly left. From that moment to this moment, I've been doing stuff I couldn't do when I had that pain. But it all stemmed from getting into the place of being still, of being present, of being watching, not being in pain, but watching that energy vibration in the body that we call pain take place. In other words, there was separation between my divine self and what was going on in my body. And the result of that, I was now able to shift to I call it a place in consciousness or parallel reality where I was already whole. Well, I did not have that pain. But this you cannot do if you're unconscious. If I were to go, man, my hip is just, I'm in so much. If I even voiced that I am in so much pain, I'm now unconscious. I'm now attached to the dream. I'm attached to this appearance that isn't the truth, because I'm soul, I'm consciousness, I'm the God self. But being able to be present in the truth, it quickly left. It quickly left, bouncing around here, running around here as if I never had it. Because I talk about shifting to the place in consciousness where certain things do not exist, or where certain things do exist. And so that was my story time for today.
Now, speaking of your pain, because when it comes down to being in touch with our body, often our bodies send us signals. Do you have any idea why or what your body needed you to know from this pain?
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because that was part of my task for today. I said I need to find out why this has shown up. I need to find the spiritual reason. Now, I never got to that because I got to the place where, oh, I'm not in. That's no longer part of my reality. But you're so right. That was part of my thought when I woke up this morning. I need to find out what mental, even as a healer, we're both healers. As a healer, I always say there's some mental or emotional expression that has caused this to show up in the body. So I never got to that, and I still may sit with that at some point today. But no, at this point I just shifted to where I don't experience.
As I mentioned before, sometimes emotional things will show up as physical sensations, including pain. But sometimes your body is also just telling you things like you need to take a break. You need to not put too much pressure here right now. It's like your body speaks to us, but many of us are for a couple of things we're so used to doing. Number one, running away from the pain, either by masking with medication, right? Without actually being curious about why it's there, right? Because sometimes it really is literally just our body trying to tell something to us, right? Whatever that may be, right? And that's why I was curious to know, as opposed to, just wanting this reality where the pain doesn't exist, like what can you learn from
I thought about that, Tennille. I thought about that, of using this body in the way that I've been using it at the gym, that it probably was a signal. Okay, James, you need to just sit down for a moment. You're not running any marathons. You're not training for the Olympics. Just because you can go do all this doesn't mean we need to do all this. So in any sense, I believe there's nothing random. There's nothing coincidence. So obviously it showed up for a purpose, and that it took me out of the gym as far as not working out, just being in the sauna, then that had to be a part of the reason, because that's what played out. Me not going to the gym, because I've been going to the gym almost every single day, and really just with shock, like, wow, I'm able to do this, I'm able to do that. So I think it's probably that, just that I need to rest my body. It's so funny too. I was good. I said, you know what? When I was in pain, I said, when I hop on with Tennille today, I'm gonna see if she knows any remedies or any, like, I was going to just ask you, did you have any ideas of what I could do? But yeah, I just at this point, I'm sure to come to me if it needs to come to me. But yeah, I just shifted. That's all I did.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that, you know, and it's ironic because this story is going to actually, my mind's going somewhere else with it. So if you don't mind, let me take you there.
Yeah,
Right?
of course, of course.
But you know, the whole concept of pain and these undesirable emotions and these undesirable feelings and these undesirable sensations, right?
Mhm.
For most of us, we are really just trained to. We don't want to deal with this. We want to get away from it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We want to
yeah,
get away from it. Even when it comes to shifting our reality, we want to shift to a reality where it doesn't exist, right?
yeah,
Not
yeah,
realizing that, as I said, there's a reason it exists,
yeah,
and there's a reason that
yeah,
exists that we need to address, right? So sometimes that requires leaning into the pain, right? Sometimes that means really focusing in and figuring out what this pain is telling us, this emotional pain, right? Even
yeah,
sometimes, so part of the my intuitive guidance coaching, where, as I said, I'm speaking to my clients, addressing their subconscious, and then they go into their subconscious, leads them to whatever parts need to be addressed based on whatever limiting beliefs we're going into. So I do not direct. It's coming. That's why I like it. It's coming from the client, right? But one of
yeah,
the things that happens is in that event, one of the first things we do is we look into what feelings are present, right? Sometimes they're emotions, sometimes they're physical sensations, and then we go into turning up that sensation. So instead of running away from it, you're literally sitting there making it bigger, right? Until subside on its own. And as it
yeah,
subsides, that's when the messaging that you need will start to come to you all on its own, right? So instead of
yeah,
avoiding it, instead of like running away from it, instead of masking it, you're facing it. Because all these things, all our negative emotions, our anger, our sadness, they serve a purpose, and that purpose is protective. That purpose is for us, right?
mm,
So to understand what are we being protected from in this moment, right? To understand what is making us feel attacked in this moment, in the case of anger, because usually anger is ultimately defensive, right? It's just most of us get defensive in situations that we shouldn't, but that's because of what's going on in our mind. And allowing our mind to actually just give us the answers by being present,
yeah,
accepting those emotions, not avoiding those emotions, not running away from them, allowing ourselves to feel them, allowing ourselves to feel them to the you know the complete depth that we can, and then
yeah.
allowing ourselves to release them, right? Instead of getting them trapped in our bodies. Anyway, so that's
So is that because it seems like I manifested this anyway. So
yeah.
that's what you would have told me if I'd have asked you to know? That's basically what you would have told me?
Feel into the pain.
Okay.
What's being
Because I'm thinking Tennille's gonna tell me to grab some paprika and some wheat leaves, take
give you
some
some Ayurvedic
saliva.
remedies. No,
So
I mean, as I say, it's so funny because um, science is backing this stuff up like majorly, and we've had some, very powerful books written on the topic, like things like The Body Keeps Store.
yeah,
The Body Keeps Score.
yeah,
The one on the emotion coding, body processing, right, to show how trapped emotions can actually manifest as sickness, manifest as physical ailments, and part of it is because we don't let these emotions be. We don't want them, so we just do everything we can to not deal with them, as opposed
yeah,
to feeling
yeah,
into them.
absolutely. So unless Tennille wants to close or something, we're gonna had to work through some technical difficulties. Woo. So working through the technical difficulties and getting to this point, I think unless Tennille wants to close with something or share something at the very end, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this session of our talk on If You Don't Mind, It Doesn't Matter. We will definitely be back this same time next week, hopefully on time, but we'll see. But Tennille, anything you want to close with, my friend?
Actually, I am curious in terms of because one of the things that I had prepared for talking about things a certain way, but we went everywhere, which is wonderful. I like that about
Yeah,
us. But one of the
yeah,
things I was wanting to see your perspective on is positive thinking, right? So when we talk about like getting out of your mind and switching to like what you think you create. This is nothing new. Think and Grow Rich.
right,
We've had it's nothing new. But my
yeah,
question is
yeah.
when. How do you suggest people make that shift?
You know what? For me, I'm not and I'm going to give you some deep spirituality here. For me, I don't do positive thinking. I don't do affirmations
Yeah.
as as the operant power of my reality, not anybody else's reality, as of my reality, meaning everything and everyone is responding to me in my reality, in other people's reality, everything and everyone's responding to them.
Mhm.
I just make a choice of what I want to experience. So positive thinking for me sounds like or looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, today's going to be a great day, or I'm going to knock out this presentation, or I'm going to get so many clients.
Mhm.
That for me is what, constitutes positive thinking. However, for me, I just become conscious of already having experienced that.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I'm doing it even without words. I just become conscious that, in other words, I see myself or see this character avatar, this personality self from the place of soul as having,
Whatever.
this great outcome, as having all these clients, having the clients that I want, of having the experience that I want. It's more selection for me than it is positive thinking. And that selection has to include what that feels like if it came to pass.
Yeah, well,
So,
that's even within the law of attraction, that's where the visualization aspect comes from, right? They speak about it. You got to not only visualize it, see it, but feel it, right?
yeah,
Um,
no, wait, go
sorry.
ahead.
But one of the things I think is, like when you come across someone that is in that negative state, largely
Mhm,
because of the things that they're thinking, how do you get
mhm.
them to get outside of the state of doom and gloom, let's just say, using
Okay.
extreme situations to, being able to see that more hopeful potential, so to speak.
Yeah, it's that space again. It's that space of, can you separate yourself from the thoughts that are coming across the screen of your mind. I really, in that moment, I'm dealing with them with identity.
Mhm.
Who are you, you know, in this moment? Are you the ego self, the personality self, or are you consciousness, soul, the God self? Because, and this is the same thing we're talking about today, from the place of mindfulness, the negative thoughts are just something that has arisen in consciousness. But when you, and I think I talked about this last time we connected, if you identify with it, if you believe in it, if you react to it, it now becomes your reality. So can you just watch the thought? Or I may even tell them, describe the thought to me. What is the thought saying? Because even that is now making them the one who's giving commentary on the thought, who's kind of describing it, and that even that is putting space. So
Yeah.
tell me about the thought. What is the thought? What is the thought saying? What is that? And now from there, it's easier to separate them from the negative thinking. But I'm definitely not opposed to, if that's where you are, that a person has to go, okay, affirmations. Like, I just gotta affirm that everything works out for me, and this is gonna work out for me. Like, I am all for you doing what you have to do for
Yeah.
you. So if it's affirmations, if it's positive thinking, if it's that, I always tell people we're always going to arrive eventually at the same destination.
Yeah.
There may be different stages that we're at on this journey, but so if that's where you, because I remember how they worked for me. I remember one of my biggest things, Tennille, was breath work.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that may have been what I gave somebody who had negative thoughts.
Mm.
I would take them through a breath work exercise, because breath work for me, even though I no longer do it, it is the most powerful tool to separate you from any kind of negative thinking. Any kind of negative thinking, because when I was in that dark place, that was what helped start to pull me out, doing breath work, because then that slowed everything down,
Yeah.
where I could just kind of watch it as if I was watching a movie take place. Where, because sometimes you can be so in it, it is easy to be pulled into the thought experience, or you're being pulled in it. Then you, no, it's not me. Then you bring, but if that breath work allows you to just have that just calmness, and you're just watching it all take place. So that may be the first thing I would give them.
You know what? So I'm glad that you said that, because this is where I was going to come about it. I see a lot of these, not to say that affirmations and positive thinking don't work. They're wonderful. They're great things to have, but they're not the first step, because the first step is really getting in touch with yourself. And that's why things
Yeah.
like breath would happen, because breath work brings you present. A lot of people,
Yeah.
if you are in a negative state, trust me, no amount of telling yourself that you are great is going to actually make you believe it in that moment, right?
Right.
It's not.
Buddy, I'm sorry.
You have to get back to you first, because then feel you, then you know you are great, right? Then
Yeah.
these things now become known. But if you're in a negative state that you haven't had a chance to shift, and the affirmations are not going to shift it, right? The present, getting back in touch with who you are, that's going to help the shift. So I'm glad, like, I was waiting to see, like, and given that you came back to breathwork, yes, ultimately that's one of the key reasons breathwork works, because that's what it does. It brings you back to you. And once you come back to you, that's why I always say, when I say I'm helping people get back to who they are, because we are, right? We are radiant. We are wonderful. We just forget it. So
Absolutely.
get back to you know who you are.
I call it getting back home. I call it getting back home, but same thing. So yeah, you know what? We'll talk after this. But you're so amazing. You're so insightful, so wise. I love doing these with you. And yeah, so that people know who are even watching. Just Tennille is awesome. Tennille is just a really awesome soul. So having said that, anything else you want to close with, my friend?
Sure, I think we're there. I know you're trying to rush me. Oh, fine. I'm going.
I'm not trying to. I'm enjoying this. Like this is so refreshing to me. But we'll talk about that offline. So having said that, we appreciate everyone who is, again, watched it live, watched it on replay. Always say I love and I appreciate you. And Tennille and I say goodbye for now.
Thank you.